Double P podcast. Double P.
What I like to call
Double P.
What I like to call
Double P podcast.
Welcome to Irish Craic, a podcast about the television series Dublin Murders, based on the books by Tana French, In the Woods and the Likeness. Today we're going to be breaking down the final episode of Season 1, Episode 8, where Katy's killer causes commotions. My name's Bubba, and with me, as always, is somebody who wants to get home and help his mom take her pills. It's Bagga. How you doing?
I'm good, Bubba. How are you?
I'm doing better than Damien. I'm probably doing better than Rosalind. Maybe not as smart or perceptive as Rosalind. Better than Rosalind. Maybe even a bit better than Adam Robb. And probably about equal with our girl Cassie. How are you doing?
I'm probably right up there with Sam this week. He has a good ending, I think. So
yeah, Sam's the only one who got a real happy ending.
Yeah.
So Bagga, we're at the end. So what is your?
So quick.
It has gone quick. What is your rating for Episode 8 of Season 1 of Dublin Murders?
I had to think long and hard about this because there are a few issues which we will talk about as we go along, but I could only give this 10 out of 10, what I like to call 5 R's.
Oh, no. Oh, no. 5 R's.
Yep. Rotten, Rosalind, ruins Rob's reality.
Oh, man, I love it. Oh, wow. That's a spoiler alert if you haven't watched this final episode. Bagga, I love that. You totally nailed this final episode to an R, not to a T. I love it. So go ahead. 10? Let's hear it. Why the high rating?
Well, I love that they showed the very first meeting of Rob and Cassie when they did their first case and how quickly they became friends when they were talking. And I just loved that. I thought that was a great scene. It wasn't long, but it showed so much in that short period, which was really good. And a case was finished in Katy case, the one that we thought no one cared about. They actually solved it, which was a shock. But also, the episode was also so sad in so many spots that we will talk about, obviously, as the episode goes on. But it was tense, and usually, I sit there and write away as I'm watching the episode and write things down and that. And there were times where I was just sort of almost frozen, forgetting to write anything because I was just so taken by what was happening on screen. This was the best episode of the series.
It was pretty good. It was pretty good. And I've got to give it up to my girl Rosalind, the actress Lee McNamara, who knocked it out of the park with her acting. Oh, I loved her so much. I'm not going to go as high as you, though. I'm going to only go up to 8, what I like to call triple Ds.
Triple Ds?
Triple D is here in Dublin. That's when you refer to dude, Damien. Dude. What a buffoon Damien was. He blew me away how silly and helpless this poor, I assume, graduate student in archaeology was. She played him like a fiddle. And Bagga, I want to go back to episode 3 of our podcast on Dublin Murders, where you said the thing that scared me so much. I was like, oh my God, Bagga has solved the whole thing. Jessica had gone to the cops and talked about, there was a man who was talking to Katy, and he wore a blue tracksuit, Katy's color. And you, in that podcast, you said, oh my goodness, I bet somebody coached her to say that. And I was like, oh my God, that's exactly right. How did he know that somebody had coached Katy's twin Jessica to say that? And I was like, oh my God, I was sure that if you followed that thread, it would lead you to really the only logical answer. Who is the person who we saw closest to Jessica throughout the series? Rotten Rosalind. And she was it. Oh, man. I was sure you had it there in episode 3. I was so nervous. Oh, my God.
in fairness, I did throw a lot of things out there. So one of them had to be sort of close, but no, I had no idea. It was a total surprise to me, really, when everything was revealed for the Rosalind or the Katy murder. I certainly wasn't expecting it, but it made sense. It really made sense. That's what I liked about it. It wasn't one of those things where you sit there and go, well, I can't imagine her really doing that, but you could imagine her having all that hatred and for her parents and doing that to take away the thing that, it's a spoiler alert, I suppose I should say. But, it was believable. That's what I liked about it.
It was believable. This show and the novel it's based on, In the Woods, did a pretty good job. Later on in the podcast, I'll go into areas where I think the novel kind of handled some of the clues better. But throughout this show, there were a bunch of clues that could point you to Rosalind, even very, very subtle clues. A great clue, I thought, my favorite clue, even though it may be way too subtle to hit, is you remember Jamie's mom. Jamie's mom had always been like, ask Adam, ask Adam. And what was great is they have a scene of her talking to a newspaper reporter. One of the things she's saying to the newspaper reporter is go find Adam. But then, as she's describing why she thinks it's Adam, everything she says applies to Rosalind. It's so good. She goes, kids can be so bitter and vindictive and they mean to each other. And she goes through this long list. And of course, in the context of the scene, you believe that she's saying this about Adam because she thinks Adam knows where Peter and her daughter Jamie ended up back in 1985. But if you remove the Adam from it, there are a lot of little things in there that point to Rosalind. I'm like, oh, so good. I don't think, once again, it was as clear as some of these great clues are in the books, but they were in there. Now, let me ask you about something else. We end the series of season 1, and we don't really have an explanation, outside of possibly a supernatural explanation, to what happened in 85 with Jamie and Peter. We still don't know what became of them. How do you feel about that? Because I know when this show aired in the UK, a good number of listeners were very furious. They're like, wait, I've spent 8 hours watching this and I don't know what happened in 1985. How did you feel?
Well, look, if at the start of the series, when we first started watching it and finding out what had happened, that something had happened in 1985, I assumed we would find out. And the way Rob was searching through everything, I thought, we're going to find out. That's what's going to be the big break in the final episode. And then as we got down to the final episode, I realised the story wasn't so much about the missing kids and what happened to them. It's about Rob, or Adam, whichever you want to call him, and how he deteriorates and what a mess he becomes at the end. I was actually okay with not finding out, because really for them to show, to create a monster and show it would really, when you see a monster on TV, you straight away you think, oh, that doesn't look real, or
right,
how's the monster going to do that or something. Leave it all up in the air. You still don't know exactly what happened. I think that's fine. After all, they're there to solve the Katy case.
Exactly.
I know
right.
A lot of people won't agree with me on that, and they, as you said, will want to know what happened. But I think that it did what it was supposed to do. Solve the case of the Katy case, which is now.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll certainly never know what actually happened way back in 1985. And I think it should stay that way. I think that's a great idea.
Let me say that a part of me wonders if this just worked better for me in the books than it would have on the show, in that I read that first novel, In the Woods, and it ends the exact same way. Rosalind is the killer. She has coerced through this pitiful Damien, and everything pretty much lines up. There are some changes. Once again, I'll talk about it. But it does end with Adam not knowing, and that is the big point of the book, in some ways, in addition to this murder of poor Katy Devlin, is that because in the book it's narrated from Rob or in his head, the point he comes to at the end of the novel is he's always going to be haunted by it. Say he found out what had happened to them, he would still be haunted by the fact that they were taken and killed or whatever. And so it really resonated with me in the novel, and I loved that. I also loved the device. Agatha Christie, in so many of her novels, is always using a device to get the reader to look in a different direction for the possible killer, so she can keep the killer a secret. And one thing the novel and the show pretty well, but the novel does great, is that because Rob is our narrator and we're in his head, we readers are also tricked into not really focusing on the Katy Devlin case. And I thought that was such a unique spin on a murder mystery, so that I did like it a lot. Listeners, if you had a problem with it, as we say, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Everybody's opinion matters. Please write to us. Leave some comments, however you could. We are Double P Media, and we're on Twitter and Instagram at Double PHQ. That's the word double, the single P, then the letters HQ for headquarters, at Double PHQ, Facebook.com/Double PHQ. And Bagga, we have some great feedback from somebody who feels slightly different from how we felt, just a little bit different. And it's from our good buddy on Twitter, Podcast Pals, who's at Podcast Pals. And they wrote us and they said they're really enjoying Irish Craic podcast. Thank you so much.
Yes, the Podcast Pals is my number one follower now.
Yeah.
I'm their number one follower.
Heck yeah.
They say more Bagga in the future.
More Bagga in the future. Heck yeah. Now, Podcast Pals...
Well, actually, I saw that, and at first I was really excited because I thought, or are they saying, more Bagga in the future, we're out of here.
Well, there is a question mark on the end of it. If it was an exclamation point, we'd be really excited.
Yeah, a bit worried about the question mark, but oh well.
They continued to mention, I already said I was unhappy with the adaptation, so I won't go on and on about it. But about the novel, The Likeness, which is the four college kids and imitation Lexie living in that house storyline, Podcast Pal writes, but The Likeness is so good. And what they did to it is arg. In the book, she's an actual detective. And I think that's kind of an interesting point, a great point that Podcast Pal brings up, in that when Cassie went undercover as imitation Lexie, she didn't seem to be doing too much detecting, did she? She just seemed to be living and maybe asking a question or two.
Yeah, there was no doubt that they cut almost the entire book out to fit it in. I guess there must have been so much that we're missing out on. For me, in the TV series, that whole sequence was just annoying because I wanted to get back to the Rob and Katy murder scenes because we knew all those characters. We didn't know anything about the college kids.
Bagga, let me jump in for a second and say that I was reading some reviews. I wanted to get everybody's take on this final episode. And so I had to read some UK reviews where it finished airing a couple of weeks ago. And one of those reviews was so tough on this series because, once again, they read The Likeness and they said in the novel, those four college kids who lived with imitation Lexie, they are actually characters in the novel, where here they're composite cardboard cutouts of, okay, I'm the devoted girlfriend, I'm the creepy guy who owns the house, I'm the meek and mild one. And so,
yeah.
But that said, we asked a great question last week about, would this series inspire us to read The Likeness? Because neither of us have read it. And I have to say that, sadly, even though I believe everybody who tells me it's a good novel, the short shrifting of that storyline leaves me not inspired to go read it.
Yeah, I agree. It's really put me off reading that book. I know when I finish reading the first one, I will go straight to number 3 because it's sort of left a bad taste in my mouth insofar as, well, they've told you what's going to happen, but yeah, as the reviewers have been saying, they've cut so much out. Yeah, she does no detecting in it. She's just there basically for periods of time, and then it's all over. Although I must admit, I did like in the final episode a couple of times she relives the shooting of Daniel, and then the doors of the lift open and Daniel's there and points his finger to his head and goes sort of bang, and then he's gone. And I quite like those bits, but it just showed they could have done so much more with that story.
Mm-hmm. One thing, Bagga, that I really was shocked by, but I actually appreciated it, was how Cassie felt very guilty about killing Daniel. And of course, as a viewer, I'm like, well, Daniel was the a-hole. Daniel was terrible. Yes, he didn't kill imitation Lexie, but he seems to be the inspiration for covering it up. He just seemed terrible. But when I thought about it, the way the character Cassie was thinking about it, she's right. He didn't have to die. They shouldn't have done this undercover operation. They should have investigated it like a normal murder mystery. Yep. It was pointless. And Daniel died for pointless reasons. Maybe he should have been in prison for what he did earlier, where I'm forgetting, when he was a young boy, like 19 or 18, he tried to kill somebody or something. But that spin on it, I really liked.
Yeah, the fact that Cassie stood up to a young Stannis and said we should never have been there in the first place. We could have broken these kids in an interview. I mean, that really summed it up, really, that she didn't need to be there.
No, and I love that she nailed him on it. And then maybe we should jump into the episode prior. I was going to say, I also love how, admittedly, by combining the two novels, they got it to work that because of the Rob Adams screw-up, Frank's screw-up didn't seem that big a deal. And how Frank survived. I actually did love that.
He was actually happy about it.
Right. Listen, I loved it so much, I'm going to have to see if I can jump straight to the line. Your cock-up completely eclipses mine, is what Frank says to O'Neill. Love it.
Oh, yeah. That was good. But I think I said last week that they should have maybe done In the Woods as a 6-part series, and then The Likeness as season 2. Another 6-part series. I assume that, or maybe even a 4-part. I don't know how much there is in the book to put in, but I think you said it's a fairly thick book, so I'm sure they could have made it into a 6-part series as well.
Oh, yeah, without question. Now, just because we're talking about it a bit, we have not heard, as far as I can tell, an announcement on Season 2 hasn't been named. But just in case anybody's wondering, these 2 books, In the Woods and Likeness, are the first 2 novels in what they call the Dublin Murder Squad series. There are 6 novels in total in the series. I have read the 3rd book in it. So I read the 1st book and the 3rd book in it. And I'm going to go ahead and give a very light spoiler in it. So I mentioned that these novels, In the Woods, it's really an Oedipus story, and The Likeness is really a Cassie story. The 3rd novel is called Faithful Place, and do you want to guess who that novel's main character is? It's Frank.
It's Frank.
It's Frank. Frank is the lead detective, the lead person in that novel, and the season ends with a close-up of Frank looking out at this construction of the motorway to nowhere, and there's the wolf. Bad sign for Frank.
Yeah. Oh, wow. This might seem a bit of a stretch, but did Frank have anything to do with the case of 1985?
I think the show may have given that impression based on the 3rd novel. No, he's not related to that case at all.
Right.
But he does have something in his past, just like Cassie had something in her past that tied to The Likeness, and Adam had something in his past that obviously tied to the In the Woods Katy Devlin case. Frank has something in his past that ties into that that comes up again in the 3rd novel while he's there as a police officer. So we shall have to see when and if season 2 comes down the pike.
Right. Oh, that would be really interesting to see what he's got in his past, because you'd imagine he'd already had some shady sort of stuff anyway, being undercover and all that sort of stuff. But to have something major on top of that, well, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I have to be honest, I liked the novel In the Woods more than I liked Faithful Place, but if they follow this novel series, it'll be very interesting, especially if they combine 2 again, like they did this season. So, Bagga, let's go ahead and let's start breaking down this episode beat by beat, and it starts with a really good beat that I think you appreciated. Dublin 2004, Rob meets his new partner / the person he's supposed to be babysitting, Cassie, at the scene of a murder. I loved this. It sounded like you loved it. What did you like seeing about how this couple we followed, these partners, I should say, we followed all season long, first met?
The first thing I like is the fact that Cassie says that they've been given this case because no one expects them to, or actually Rob might have said, I'm not sure. One of them said that they've been given this case because nobody expects a result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they were going to prove everyone wrong by getting a result. And then we see them in the car, and Rob makes a joke about her parents.
Yeah. Whoops.
Yeah, and straight away she says, "Oh yeah, my parents are both dead." And then she tells the story of the car crash and the stag, I think she called it.
Oh yeah.
Most people would straight away turn around and go, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to say that," something like that. "Oh, that's terrible," or something. Except he turns around and says, "This is a test, isn't it? You're going to see how I react."
Yep.
Which I thought was a really interesting thing to say, because that would never have occurred to me to say something like that. And you're the only one to get out alive. We have something in common.
God, I love that. Love that.
Yeah, and straight away you can see the connection is there, that they're going to be best buddies. Well, you assume forever, but yeah, I thought it was a great short scene, but brilliant. Really hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, it's an episode that begins with us seeing how these partners came to start, and theoretically at the end of the episode we see how these partners came to end and possibly never see each other again. Ooh, certainly with what happened to Rob. And then we cut to our current timeline, and I've already said it, Damien, he is just clueless. I love, the one thing I do love is he knows he doesn't have any money, and he's like, how much is this going to cost? He's not afraid of, he has no problem confessing to murder, but he's like, I don't have enough money here. You got any coupons?
It is funny that you think he's smart, but in a way he's very one can short of a six-pack, I think you'd say.
I'd go more than one can, but yeah.
Yes, probably 3 or 4 cans short, but he just doesn't get it. And of course, after he confesses, and then he wants to know when he can go home to take care of his mother.
Oh, my Lord.
He just doesn't get it. And then they have to tell him that he's never going home, and then he just collapses.
Yeah, Damien is just a wreck. He is a human wreck. And he's giving off a very odd vibe, especially if you don't know where the story's going, where he's nonchalantly talking about, I killed her and all this stuff. But also being very, very, he wants everybody to know, yes, I murdered this teenage girl, but you know what? I'm not a pervert. What?
Yes.
I mean, Damien, wise up, buddy.
It was obvious to me when I was watching it that he'd been put up to it. I didn't know who by, but somebody had somehow convinced him to do it.
I just want to look at what Damien did, because in some ways it's just ludicrous. He gets convinced by this pretty girl who he's probably not too experienced, by this pretty girl that she has been sexually assaulted by her father, and that her younger sister laughs at her while this is happening. Then she's like, if somebody would do something to her. This girl is sent to him in the middle of the night with a love letter that says, "Prove to me your love. Prove your love to me." What in the world? He smashes her on the head with a rock a couple times, puts her in his mom's trunk, drives her home. Then, while he's trying to clean the rock that keeps the garage door open, what a buffoon, she's still alive. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, Damien.
And then she comes out and says, "I want to go home."
Oh, my Lord.
And he's just sort of standing there like,
What if she had gone home? This is hilarious. What if he just had let her go home? What's Katy going to say? Rosalind, I don't think you should date that guy. He beat me over the head, threw me in a trunk, and brought me to his house.
Yeah, I don't really like him that much. Maybe he's not your type.
Oh, my God. What a buffoon.
The fact that when she did come around and walked in on him, she was obviously totally confused about everything and just sort of stood there and said, "I want to go home." Normal reaction would have been jump out of where she was, try to get out, run off or something. But you forget she was a young girl. She'd been hit hard on the head. She was probably concussed, probably didn't know where she was or what had happened or anything. So I thought that was interesting to do it that way.
Now, believe it or not, Damien is a little hazy on some of the details, and he keeps saying hazy. And probably Damien's second worst crime after killing a kid was lying to Quigley. Quigley was very upset that Damien cried when they were looking at the suspects.
Yeah, he felt sorry for him.
I know.
But then he does, sort of confess that he may have been assaulted when he was young.
Right, yeah.
Because he does talk about that's why he was crying, because of all those people were doing things to the kids, and they should all be, I can't remember what he said, killed or locked up or something. And you do suspect that something happened. I think even Rob said, did something happen to you? Mm-hmm. But they didn't really pursue it. Damien had to get home to look after his mum, so they had to cut the interview short. So.
Right. Guys, I could go on all night, but I'm a little hazy on details, and Grandma needs her pills.
Yes.
Or it's his mother, I should point out. It's the poor kid's mother.
Yeah, and there was an interesting thing. Did you notice when Damien was taken away by the local policeman, and Quigley and Rob was standing in the hallway? Did you notice the sign behind them?
No. What was that? Great.
The sign behind them was saying what the rooms were for. And obviously, room A is this, room B is that. Mm-hmm. 2 rooms were listed as soft interview, rooms 1 and 2. And they were in one of those rooms that was a soft interview room. Not exactly sure what a soft interview is.
Well, what if they were describing Damien? We got this suspect. He's a little soft. All right, let's put him in this one.
Yes, well, that could be it. But they didn't say a hard interview. Maybe that was on the other wall or something.
They saved that for Rosalind. Yes, that's where they're going to put her.
It just seemed a strange thing to see. I assume it must mean something in police folklore or something, but it was a strange thing to see on the wall. Soft interview.
Now, Rob has sent Sam. Originally, O'Neill wanted Sam in with Rob during the interview, but Rob, of course, has got this issue with Sam. So he sends Sam to Damien's house. And, of course, that's where the final clue, the most important clue is. Rob gets there. Sam says it's in his bedroom. And in his bedroom are "Now prove you love me" note and Polaroids of his sexy time. And it couldn't have been that sexy because he was sleeping on the floor. What?
But at the time, we didn't actually see what the photos showed.
That's true.
Because they cut from him looking at the photos
to Simone, the ballet teacher, running to the Devlin house.
And looking like she's being chased by the police.
Right. Well, before she's chased by the police, she shows up. And good old Margaret Devlin, she, of course, thinks that this ballet teacher is coming to get her husband, Jonathan, who she doesn't really love. Why is she so... She's here for you. Well, admittedly, didn't she say something like, I have no idea why? Listen, as an audience member, we don't have an idea why either.
Exactly.
But they do soon chase down Simone. We think she's chasing down Simone, but Simone is trying to catch Rosalind. What did you think when the wicked sister was revealed? What did you think of Rosalind, the planner of a murder?
At first, I was pretty shocked. Well, when I realised that they were chasing Rosalind down. But then during the interview, when she says she'll only talk to Cassie, then her whole demeanour had changed from this girl who we thought was innocent and not very knowledgeable about life, and she was full on. She was playing games with Cassie.
Loved it.
It happened with Cassie and Rob, and it was a great scene, though. Man,
I loved her playing Cassie. I loved how Rosalind would act like one emotion, like remorse or sadness, and then immediately just turn it off when she wanted to go attack with some red meat. And
Yes.
Rosalind being the killer, I want to go to the novel just a bit. So Rosalind being the killer, I didn't solve it. Admittedly, at a certain point, it's only Rosalind, but I didn't solve it when I've read it. But the one thing I wish the series had done, which the novel did, is there is that scene of Rob with Rosalind when she thinks, oh, you gave me the phone, are you trying to hit on me? But it's not like they have more scenes together. But the scenes of Rosalind and Rob in the novel, he is really playing his emotions on her. He's really, like, they build an emotional bond, it feels like, even though they don't have that many more scenes together in the novel. But they build an emotional bond, and admittedly, most of it is Rob trying to get her close to her so she'll give up some dirt and stuff. And when he in the novel realizes, oh crap, it's Rosalind, he almost doesn't want to admit it. He's like, let's leave. No, I don't think it's her. Yeah, let's not interview her. Because he's built such a bond, and he knows in the novel, once again, he's a narrator and we're in his head, that he's been emotionally manipulating her. And it isn't until this interview, which Cassie does in the novel, where he realizes, and we as a reader realize, that all these times when we thought, and Rob thought, he was emotionally manipulating Rosalind to get information out of her, she was actually emotionally manipulating him to get information out of him. It's a bit easier to understand in the novel, for example, how she knew, oh, wait a minute, this guy's Adam. And so I wish the show could have done that. But this actress, once again, she just knocks it out of the park. She's great.
Yeah, she looked like she was, the interview was about to be terminated. She was in big trouble. There was nothing more to be said. The guys behind the window, the other policeman, Rob and Quigley and that, are basically about to shake hands and say, let's get a beer or something.
Oh, yeah, it's Miller time.
Yeah, then Rosalind, you didn't think I'd come here without, she still had a card to play, which was that she knew that Rob was actually Adam. And, of course, Cassie, straight away, as soon as she realises what Rosalind might say, is trying to terminate the interview.
Yep. Oh.
And the lawyer, who has sinus trouble, as we found out early.
That guy should be defending Damien. Those two deserve each other. This lawyer was a complete buffoon. He's like, I kind of talked to her. She didn't listen. You guys just have fun.
Yeah, and then Rosalind I did think it's strange at the time that she talked about knowing that Rob was Adam, because he led on too much. And I thought, well, in the show, they hadn't really spoken that much.
No.
They had little bits, but I just sort of guessed that maybe in the book they might have had a bit more.
Yeah, they did. And if you had removed the likeness, once again, I don't know if you would have needed all 8 episodes to get in the woods, but those were the scenes I was missing. Yeah, even though, once again, there may be just like one more in the book than there is in the show, but it's very, I remember one scene where Rob takes this innocent girl, Rosalind, to a park, to kind of like a place you might go on a date, and these thoughts are going in his head, and it's just, I wish the show could have included that. And yeah, in the show, he had said that he had lost a friend. He had never even told Rosalind that he had lost 2 friends, which might have been an easier clue for her to understand that, hey, he's Adam, the kid who went missing. But either way, what really makes this scene is just how evil she is. I just love it. And you can really believe this is somebody who just a couple episodes ago, we were feeling very sorry for because her mom came into her while she was in the shower and said, I never wanted you. How she could be filled with so much friggin' red meat and anger and so vicious. Like she didn't want Katy discovered immediately because she wanted there to be some hope. It's the hope that kills. Oh, man.
Yeah. And not only that, to reveal that Rob is Adam and then know that the other policemen are going to be all standing behind the mirror, and walks up to the mirror and virtually talks straight to Rob, even though she couldn't see him, but she knew he was there somewhere. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was pretty evil. You could see there that this was the woman who had organised the murder, even though she apparently loved Katy.
Right. I was proud of Katy. I didn't hate her at all.
Yeah. Didn't love her quite as much as what you would have expected.
And she really didn't like her parents. Being with them is like having a bag held over your head, a.k.a. how Katy ended up being killed. Ooh.
Yes, exactly. And in all fairness, when we had seen her react or be with her family during the episodes, she was doing all the looking after of Jessica and cleaning up after her dad and helping her mum to do everything and running the household, basically. And, she obviously had been doing that for a long, long time, and she had held it all in front of everybody. But obviously when she was on her own, she must have been planning to do something for a long time to get back at them.
Now, were you shocked, and I was a bit shocked, at how well, and well is it's a degree, I guess I should say, how well Chief Varys, a.k.a. O'Neill, took this news. It is insubordination not to tell your boss, to lie to your boss and say Adam was killed in New Zealand. I mean, it would have been perfectly understandable if Chief Varys had just ripped Rob a new one. Ooh.
Yeah, especially because at the start of the show, it seemed like Varys didn't really like Rob or Cassie, so to speak.
Right.
Like, he was giving them the crappy cases and stuff. And so by the end, though, he had obviously come around and, well, for some reason, decided he really liked Rob. I was surprised that he took it so well, because knowing that all the cases that Rob had worked, all those results will now be called into question. I mean, that's a lot of cases, I assume, that, well, it's Murder Squad, so that's a lot of important murder cases that are going to be either reopened or the results thrown out, or I'm not sure what would happen in that case. But
Bagga, I'm going to go in and tell another little spoiler of the novel In the Woods that it makes this ending even more tragic. So in the TV show, we have here that, this is a screwy investigation. Rob, Adam, what's going on? And it seems like that could help Rosalind kind of get off easy, possibly end up in a nut house, whatever. But in the novels, get ready for it. Rob has an even bigger screw up. Not only has he been emotionally kind of manipulating and building a bond with Rosalind throughout the novel, but guess what? Rosalind has tricked Rob. Rob thinks she's 18 and therefore like a legal adult, but she's actually only 17. And so she couldn't be tried as an adult. And so all these things he had done because he thought she was 18 and therefore an adult. Apparently in Ireland, a lot of this stuff had to be thrown out because you're not allowed to question a minor without like a lawyer and stuff. And it was... It is such a big screw up. It is such a giant screw up. It's like the final kick in the teeth for Rob in the novel, and I love it because I want Rosalind out there committing more evil. I want her to be the new Joker of Dublin. I love her.
Yeah. Oh, it's a shame they couldn't include that. Oh, they didn't include that.
Right. You would have to. You'd have to understand about. Wait, you didn't check the daughter's age, but based on the novel, once again, Rob is so focused on 85 that you could understand how he's kind of cutting corners. And she told him she was 18, and so he just goes without checking. I just love that bit of wickedness in the novels. But what did you think about? We've talked so much about Rob and Rosalind. How do you think Cassie handled this?
Well, Cassie was pretty devastated when Rosalind said that Rob was Adam.
Oh, yeah. Rosalind's one perceptive thing. It's not just, hey, have you done something with your hair? It's, did something happen between you and Detective Reilly? Ooh.
Yes. She knew what was going on. She knew that she could tell that Rob and Cassie had a connection, even though it was only friends originally, at least the time that she knew them anyway. But it was interesting that she only wanted to talk to Cassie because she thought that Cassie was the one that would have seen through her fakeness of the story of being abused by her dad and everything.
Yeah, I love that moment where Rosalind's like, what was your first thought when you came and saw our family? And I wanted Cassie to say, well, I noticed you weren't wearing a bra, because that still stands out to me to this day. But when Cassie said I could tell something was wrong in this house, it's like, yeah, I get it. Cassie didn't have the blinders that Rob/Adam did, and so she probably could have solved this quicker.
Yeah, you do think that if she hadn't been called away on another case, certainly Rob's life wouldn't have deteriorated like it did, and Cassie probably would have solved it. But then again, for most of the series, Rob had no intention of solving the Katy case. He was too busy working on the 1985 case.
He was. That's exactly right. And Rob, first he has to give up his gun and badge, and then apparently the guilty party, the suspect Rosalind, can start having demands and say, I want to see Rob. This is hilarious. Yeah. And why did she want to see him? Because she wanted to talk some ice-cold smacks to him. My God, I love it. You know what happened to Peter and Jamie? Well, and not you. It's because they were special, golden, like Katy. You're just so ordinary. Oh, I didn't want us to part company without telling you that. Oh, Rosalind, are you single, girl? I'm married.
Yeah, she says you were not wanted like me. Dude, that's a slap.
And then Rob goes downstairs and talks to Cassie, and in a parallel but not exactly identical scene to which opened the series, where we see these two partners who seem to be really good partners say goodbye to each other. What did you think about this? My favorite point in the whole scene was when Cassie told Rob, "You need to leave those woods."
Yes. Well, this was really interesting because when I watched that scene, something just seemed strange to me, and I couldn't work it out. And it was only when I jumped on the computer and had a look at the first episode of when they're talking, I realised that the first time we see them in the first episode when they're talking there, he has the Cassie haircut.
Oh.
But in the second time we see them in the last episode, she has the Lexie haircut.
No, she definitely has it in this episode. Yeah, that imitation Lexie look, for sure.
So it's the same scene, but told from different angle or something. Now she's got the Lexie haircut. It wouldn't have made sense to have the Lexie haircut the first time we saw it.
Right. No, that's a good point. That's really smart.
It made sense for her to have the Cassie haircut the second time we saw it. So it was really interesting, I thought, the way they filmed that.
Actually, that's a great point to go back and check. I think, we don't talk sometimes about the artistry of the filmmaking in this, but the fact that it suddenly switched to where they were talking across a table, but the way it's presented is that Rob's looking right into the camera, Cassie's looking right into the camera. That was a pretty strong visual look to shake up the rhythms of the show, to really show, hey, this is the breaking point, or this is the goodbye right here. Yeah,
and of course, like the first episode when we saw it, it was like, this is interesting. I wonder what this is going to be about. But this time to see it, it was so sad and heartbreaking to have Rob and then Cassie looking straight at the camera saying their lines. Like, that was... I couldn't write anything. I couldn't do anything at the time. I just sat there and was spellbound by the performances, which were just brilliant. No, they both were. These are two great actors. Certainly next season, you don't think we're going to see Rob. He seems to be stationed probably in the furthest police precinct from Dublin, is what it sounds like happens to him. And Cassie, how quickly can she jump back in when everybody believes that she's not trustworthy because everybody believes she knew Rob was Adam and didn't tell? Ooh. Yeah. Well, I guess we don't find out where they end up because I doubt they'd be mentioned in the next stories, assuming there'll be another series. I know from the third book that Cassie is mentioned some, but if she's in that third book, it's tough for me to remember. She's definitely a minor character in it. It is a Frank story, as we say. Yeah. And so let's just talk about Cassie's story in this episode. She's home from this undercover assignment, something that I should have picked up on, but for me it's kind of hard to read these home pregnancy tests, but she is pregnant.
And she turned in a report which put Frank over the coals, as he seemingly rightly should have been put over the coals. Frank shows up. He's trying to pressure her to rescind the report. And she's correct. We shouldn't have been in that house. We need to be stopped. We're dangerous, Frank, and we've been doing this way too long. I'm on Team Cassie. She's right.
Yeah, it's obvious, just from thinking back after she said that, and you think back to how arrogant Frank had always come across throughout the series. He could do anything and get away with it, like even breaking into a house and having a look around and stuff like that. He didn't care. It was all, anything to solve the case.
Yeah, and can you believe this young Stannis might be the lead next season?
That's going to be interesting. Will he still be so young?
Well, they're going to have to have two different looks, because it's how old would you say he's in this show? About 45, maybe 40, I don't know. And
40, 45, around that.
Yeah, and so once again, they'd need a 20 years younger young Stannis, an even younger young Stannis to
maybe
pull off.
A wig or something.
Definitely get him a wig, get him a hairpiece. Let's do this.
Yeah.
So Cassie gets on a ferry to Liverpool, and if you've been paying attention to poor Sandra's story, you could tell where this is going. She goes and gets an abortion. Then she spreads imitation Lexie's ashes on the beach. She comes back home and has a tender moment with Sam. How do you feel about Cassie's end?
First of all, when you're spreading ashes, make sure you know which way the wind was blowing. Blowing.
Yeah, instead of blowing it out to sea, it looked like it was blowing back to the beach.
Yes, I think a lot of those ashes were actually just going to be on the pier by the way the wind was blowing. Leaving that aside, it was good that she did that. It's interesting that the box still listed as Jane Doe, so they never discovered who Lexie actually was.
Terrible.
Amazing in this day and age, really. With the technology and everything they have, that they still couldn't find out who she was.
Well, I'll give the Irish Police Department a slight caveat to say that it was 13 years ago, but yet even in 2006, the fact they couldn't figure out who she was seems unbelievable.
Yeah. That's actually, just talking about this being back a few years, it was very refreshing to watch a crime show where they don't say, check the CCTV footage every 5 minutes.
Right, good point.
All they do on the modern shows, everywhere there seems to be these CCTV cameras, and they can seem to capture everything. And the funny thing is that the poor sod whose job it is to call it, to bring up these images, always brings up an image, and then the main character says, can you clean that up a bit?
Oh, yeah.
And they go, oh, yeah, and now suddenly it's all clean. And you think, wouldn't you have thought to have done that in the first place if you could do that?
Hold on. Guess what? You can't clean up those images.
No, I know.
These pixels, you got to be kidding me. You can zoom in, and so maybe by zooming in, but cleaning up pixels like that, especially of a CCTV camera, which is probably shooting, 10, maybe 2 frames a second, 1 frame a second, less than a frame a second? Ugh.
I love it when they've got a picture and there's a number plate on a car, which is just total blur, and they clean it up with a few keystrokes, and now they can read the number plate. It's like, no, it doesn't happen that way.
Well, okay, I'll go ahead and give my own background story. This goes back to pre-1990, pre-2006. I'm talking back in the late 90s. I was working in video production at a place that was tied to the local cable system, and somebody had gone in and cut the local cable system's fiber. This is a very expensive fiber cable that they were cutting back in the late 90s. And they brought me the CCTV security footage and asked me if I could clean it up or something. And I had to explain to them. And this was the cable company. I said, that it doesn't work like this. Here, I'll blow it up some. But you could tell it's just a blurrier smudge now. Yeah,
it's amazing that, especially on modern cop shows, that they still use that that technology of amazingly being able to clean up images that you know it's impossible for them to do.
Oh, yeah.
But it always makes me laugh to think that the poor sod whose job it is to do never thinks to clean it up in the first place. He always gives them the blurred copy first, and then they have to say, can you clean it up? And then he cleans it up.
It's job security. I'll give him the blurry version first.
Yes, that's you've got to prove how good he is by cleaning it up. Yeah, that's true.
Do you think Sam and Cassie are going to survive? They've had a very rocky season. How do you feel about the couple, Sam and Cassie, at the end? They definitely share a warm moment, a nice moment on the couch.
Sam was all set to go. He was almost out the door when Cassie said, "Can you stay a bit longer?" Mm-hmm. Which showed she certainly still had feelings for him. And then he came back and they held hands, and Cassie put her head on his shoulder. And I almost expected Sam to jump up and go, "Yes, finally!" He hasn't had a good series with things going wrong for him, so I was glad for him that I think they'll be all right together.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah. We were talking before about the scene with Cassie and Rob when they were one-on-one in the evidence room.
Yeah.
After she walks out and Rob says that the message that he tried to give her was that he loved her and she was the only woman he ever loved. But he couldn't tell her that.
She had to leave.
He had to wait for her to leave and then he could say it. Like, that was just so soul-destroying to see how heartbroken he was, and she didn't know. And yet, at the same time, she hadn't told him that she was pregnant with most likely his baby, I assume. Yeah, there's a lot going on that wasn't talked about.
I think she knew that they couldn't be an item. So even if he had told her he loved her, she might have said, "I love you too." But I have a hard time seeing them ending up together with they're both at that point pretty damaged.
Yes. And in fact, Rob actually says, "I thought we could just say sorry." I was interested. Was he saying, and everything would be right? Was he saying that him and Cassie could just say sorry and be all right, or the police stuff would be okay? It was the Cassie stuff he was talking about, wasn't it?
That's the way I read it. Yeah, that if he just showed that he was truly sorry, that she would somehow forgive him for doing some really terrible things there, Rob.
Yeah.
And Rob, we shouldn't even call him Rob anymore because now he's Adam. This is it.
Yeah.
Adam is being swarmed by reporters. It's 1985 all over again. What happened to Peter and Jamie, Adam? And he goes out, he escapes the avalanche of people, and he goes to a parking lot, and who comes to talk to him? But certainly a guy we thought was creepy, certainly a guy who participated in one of the most evil acts in the show. Jonathan Devlin shows up. And it's almost like you have now, because of what Rosalind did, a bit of sympathy for this guy, even though, he did it. He did it with Sandra.
Yes, it was strange because they were two characters who were both distraught, were both really struggling with everything that had happened. Mm-hmm. They spoke the truth to each other.
They did. And so apparently what happened on that night is, as we saw, Peter, Adam, and Jamie saw the thugs of Shane, Jonathan, and Call hold down Sandra, and seemingly just Call raped her, took advantage of her, sexually assaulted her, did all the terrible things. But then apparently, and you would assume this would be Peter and Jamie, called and said, "Hey, we're going to tell. They got chased by the bullies. They disappeared. The bullies looked for them for forever. They found Adam hugging the tree. And Adam, at this point, whatever happened had already happened. His shoes were filled with blood. There was the scratches and tears in his shirt. And so they ran. And we find out that what we all suspected was true. Margaret was lying to cover for them. But it turns out Margaret had a crush on Call, not on Jonathan. And that's why she did it. Oh, this couple of Margaret and Jonathan are truly doomed. And Jonathan, for all his terribleness, seems like he did give a statement to the police about this terrible crime he committed back in the 80s.
It will be good to know that Carl would be held accountable for it, because he wasn't a nice guy at all.
Ever. Never.
No. I have no idea what happened to poor old Shane.
Oh, my God.
He survived the beating from Rob, but he'd probably never be the same again if he was anything in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, that's horrible to even think about the way he was the last we saw him. So it was fascinating, really, to see both Jonathan and Adam talking about what they remembered or what happened at the time. And Adam saying that he didn't remember. He just remembered seeing the rape, and then afterwards, he didn't remember anything. So it was really interesting because you could see, and Adam actually says to Jonathan, when Jonathan says, "We didn't do anything to you kids," Adam actually says, "Yeah, I believe you."
And I think as an audience, we're supposed to believe it too. I kind of believe it.
Yeah. Well, there didn't seem any reason that Jonathan would be lying at that stage. Yeah, I think what he said happened really did happen. So that supernatural thing certainly was in there. And that really is the only explanation for the fact that the kids' bodies were never found. If Jonathan and the other two had actually killed them, that the bodies would have been found eventually.
Oh, yeah.
Because they had time to do anything to hide them much. So, yeah, it had to be some sort of supernatural happening. And, the blood in the shoes and the rips on the shirt and the fact that Adam couldn't remember anything, it had to be something horrific for his mind not to let him remember anything of it.
The last bit we see of Adam in the episode is he goes to where they're bulldozing these trees, this road to nowhere. Quote unquote, the bad guys have won. If Carl isn't prosecuted for what he did in the 80s, he seems like he's going to be making a lot of money on this road to nowhere. And Frank happens to be there, and he gives some ribbing, not his usual ridiculous insults, but he gives some ribbing to Adam about what's going to happen to him. And then he gives him, is it an arrowhead with the Era King, a.k.a. the baby killer symbol on it? Ugh. But Adam doesn't want it. I actually kind of like the fact that Adam didn't want it. He didn't want to hear it. Hopefully he is somehow able to leave these woods.
When he knocked back the stone, or was it arrowhead? I didn't know it was an arrowhead. I just thought it was a stone. But anyway.
Yeah, no, it could have been a stone. Sorry, I was guessing. I don't know.
Well, actually, thinking about it, they were digging for stuff around there, so it could have been an arrowhead anyway. So the fact that he gives Adam, I keep going to say Rob, he gives Adam the stone, and Adam looks at it and then says, "No, I don't want it," and gives it back. I think that's like his first step to getting away from the woods. He might not ever be able to get totally away, but it's a first step for him. He wasn't going to focus on it anymore.
I think that's a great way to phrase it. And I believe that is what we're supposed to take. That's what I took. It feels like that's going to be really good for Adam, Rob, to let it go, as Elsa would say. Yeah.
Oh, when he was in the car and he was surrounded by all the press,
mm-hmm.
and they're all saying, "What happened, Adam?" And all. Didn't you just want him to, put his foot on the accelerator and knock over?
No, I wanted them to pan across these people screaming, "Where's Peter? Where's Jamie?" I wanted them to cut across and have the crazy nosy lady who gave out those terrible cookies and stuff earlier to be like, "Hey, can you tell? You could tell me. You could tell me. Want a snack?"
Yeah, I was actually surprised she wasn't included in on the interviews. She seems to know everything else. Just don't mind me. I'll just be in the back here.
All right, Bagga, how do you feel? You want to wrap up season 1? You glad you watched this show? How you feeling?
Look, I love this show. It's certainly in my top 10 of shows for the year, right up the top. I think I'm not going to put them in any sort of order, but it's certainly right up there with anything else I've seen this year. And I love crime shows where you get invested in the characters, and even the bad guys aren't just cardboard cutouts. And when you do have a slim chance of working it out, even if you don't know that you might have come across it, like obviously I came across something early on, but as I've said before, I threw out a lot of ideas, so the chances are one of them had to be somewhere correct, at least a little bit. But anyway, I thought, look, the direction was great, the acting was superb. The only downside was squeezing the likeness into the two and a bit episodes. I thought that was a waste of time, really. It would have been better to just cut it down to a 6-part series and just keep it as that, and just have some reason why Cassie had to go away.
No, I think,
like that.
I feel very similarly. I just also want to add, Rosalind, if you and Damien aren't working out, I'm here. I'm single. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I hopefully, listeners, you had some fun. Once again, one phrase I say is, who cares what we think? It's important what you think. Once again, please join us on social media, on any of these platforms we're on, at PHQ, Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/PHQ. It's a new year. Anything you excited to be looking forward to in entertainment in the coming 2020 decade?
Well, I actually haven't been looking to see what's coming up, but I assume there will be another series of Westworld. Would that be coming?
It's supposed to be coming pretty soon. I think spring.
Oh, good. It seems a bit strange not to be saying Game of Thrones anymore, but we will eventually have one of the prequels. I'm not sure. I think that might be the following year.
I would assume so, yeah.
Yeah, because I was still working at the details last I heard. So, to be honest, I don't know what else is coming up.
Well, I have seen the first episode, so I don't want to go too far, but I have read Megan Abbott's book, Dare Me, which actually gets some tough reviews, but I found it to be wickedly diabolical fun. It's premiering here in the States, Dare Me. I saw the premiere episode, and I thought, this isn't quite as deliciously evil as the book is yet, but that's coming out. Obviously, we're going to have Babylon Berlin coming up on Netflix, season 3 of that technically, even though Netflix combined the German seasons 1 and 2. Hopefully, we'll have Dark season 3 coming out. We'll have another season of The Mandalorian. Please follow us on all our social media, and we'll tell you what we'll be covering in the new year. Bagga, are you going to continue on with your coverage of Australian Survivor?
Yes, I think I will. There aren't many good Australian shows to cover, unfortunately. So I think I'll probably continue on with Australian Survivor. I'm not sure about Australian Amazing Race. I did it this season, but I'm not a huge fan of it. So I'll see how I go. If anything of interest comes up, I'll let you know that I'm going to do it. But at this stage, I haven't seen anything in any of the ads or anything saying anything that I'm looking forward to. But you never know. Something could pop up.
Well, listeners, you tell us what you're looking for. Who cares what we think? Once again, tell us what we should be watching in 2020. For everybody here at Double P Media, my name's Bubba, and you can find me on Twitter at FitandTrim. That's FITTENTRIM, at FitandTrim on Twitter.
And my name's Bagga, and you can find me at Bagga, BAGGA 2007.
And before we go, get it, Bagga, let's say it.
Craics. How do you say it? Craics?
I always thought it was cracks. Yeah, we're going to give you some Irish sayings that we like to say. I'm Scottish and English descent. I don't have any Irish descent in me, but we're going to give you some Irish definitions and things. So you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
I'll go first. I've got 2, so
Great.
I'll start off with the first one. Always remember that hindsight is the best insight to foresight.
Oh, my God. Say that one more time. That's really good.
Always remember that hindsight is the best insight to foresight.
That is pretty... I agree. In fact, guess what? In hindsight, that saying is even smarter. I thought this had a different definition, so I'm really glad that I looked this up. When I thought about all the lies that Rosalind had told this year, I thought, oh, what a load of blarney. So I looked up the Irish expression blarney. But guess what? That's not really what it is. Blarney is talk that aims to charm or pleasantly flatter or persuade. The example is, he had the street charm of an Irish politician, but this blarney concealed his inner self. So it isn't, like I thought, full of bull. Blarney is more like to persuade someone with charm or pleasant flattery. So here on Irish Craic, we're educating me.
Educating me too, because I always thought it was like you did. That's the only way I think I've ever heard it.
Who knew?
No.
Who knew?
I have one more.
Great, let's hear it.
Don't be breaking your shin on a stool that's not in your way.
Don't be breaking your shin on a stool that's not in the way, meaning don't head towards trouble, or what do you take that to mean?
I have no idea. Don't be breaking your shin on a stool. So don't go a way you don't need to go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure.
Listen, it works for me. I'm down with it.
Yeah. In hindsight, maybe I should have gone with the other one second.
For everybody at Irish Craic, we will be seeing you if and when Season 2 takes place. Good night.
Bye.